I've spent 20 years exposing other people's lies. 20 years hunting through spreadsheets and bank statements, following paper trails that lead to boardroom conspiracies and million-dollar fraud schemes. I'm Daniel Mercer, forensic accountant, and I'm damn good at what I do. I can spot a discrepancy from 3 columns away. I can smell financial fraud like smoke from a burning building. The irony isn't lost on me that the biggest lie I ever encountered was sleeping in my bed every night. At 41, I thought I had my life figured out. 6-foot frame, graying at the temples, pulling in $125,000 annually from my practice. Not bad for a kid from Newark who put himself through Rutgers on student loans and determination. I'm methodical to a fault. My friends joke that I alphabetize my sock drawer. When your job is finding needles in financial haystacks, organization becomes religion. I met Victoria 9 years ago at my college roommate's wedding. She was seated at table 6, wearing this emerald green dress that made her auburn hair look like fire in the candlelight. Most wedding conversations are small talk, but Victoria was different. When I mentioned I was a forensic accountant, instead of the usual glazed-over politeness, she leaned forward. "So you're like a financial detective?" she asked, genuine interest sparkling in her gray-green eyes. "Something like that," I replied. "I follow money trails to catch white-collar criminals." "That's fascinating," she responded. "I work in tech, financial software for startups. I've always been interested in how people manipulate systems." We talked for 3 hours. She asked intelligent questions about my work, shared stories about startup culture, and when she laughed at my terrible jokes, it felt real. By the end of the night, I was completely hooked. The first 5 years of our marriage were everything I'd hoped for. Victoria left her tech startup job 4 years ago after burnout. 18-hour days had left her exhausted. I was happy to support her taking time off. We had savings, my practice was growing, and honestly, I loved coming home to someone who wanted to hear about my day. We bought the colonial house in Westfield 3 years ago. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, the kind of place I'd dreamed about as a kid. Victoria threw herself into making it perfect. Farmers market flowers every Sunday, dinner parties with coordinated place settings, a herb garden that actually produced edible food. She joined yoga classes, started attending charity galas, discovered she had an eye for art. It was a good life. Maybe not passionate movie romance good, but solid, comfortable, built on trust and mutual respect. I trusted her completely. Looking back, maybe too completely. My work requires 60-hour weeks regularly, sometimes 80 when I'm deep in complex cases. Last month, I spent 3 weeks documenting an embezzlement scheme that cost a pension fund $2.3 million. The perpetrator was the CFO's trusted assistant, someone who'd worked there 15 years, attended company picnics, sent birthday cards to colleagues' children. The day I testified, putting her away for 7 years, I came home exhausted. Victoria was in the kitchen, uncorking a bottle of the Cabernet we saved for special occasions. "Rough day?" she asked, moving behind me to massage my shoulders. "Long day. Good outcome, though," I answered. "The jury convicted on all counts." "Of course they did," she said, kissing the top of my head. "You always catch the bad guys. That's what you do." I remember thinking how lucky I was. Someone who understood my work, who celebrated my victories, who made our house feel like home. I should have paid attention to the details. That's what I tell clients. The truth always lives in the details. The small inconsistencies, the numbers that don't add up. Victoria's phone had become permanent. She'd scroll during dinner, smile at screens in ways that never included me. When I asked who she was texting, always the same answer. "Just the girls from yoga," she would say. There were other things. Credit card charges I didn't recognize. Victoria claiming she'd spent $400 at Nordstrom when she never brought home shopping bags. Yoga classes running longer. Business calls in other rooms about investments. When I asked, Victoria had reasonable explanations for everything. All perfectly logical. All completely believable. All, as I would discover, complete lies. I've learned that the truth always lives in the details, the small inconsistencies, the numbers that don't add up. I just never thought I'd need to apply that principle to my own wife. I should have. The call came at 1:15 p.m. Tuesday, just as I was reviewing deposition notes. "Mr. Mercer, this is Jennifer from Lee, Blake & Associates," the voice said. "I'm calling about the Hartwell deposition scheduled for this afternoon." I switched the phone to my other ear. "What about it?" I asked. "Mr. Blake's mother was just rushed to the hospital with a heart attack," she explained. "He needs to postpone until next week. I'm so sorry for the short notice." "Of course," I replied. "I hope she's okay. Can we reschedule for Thursday? I'll check his calendar and get back to you," she promised. After hanging up, I stared at my cleared calendar. 3 free hours on a Tuesday afternoon, a gift I hadn't received in months. I could tackle the Bennett case or catch up on paperwork. Instead, I found myself thinking about Victoria, about that Italian restaurant on Elm Street, about the last time we'd had a spontaneous afternoon together. 20 minutes later, I was driving through our tree-lined neighborhood with an actual smile. Maybe we could take a walk through the park. Maybe we could sit on the deck and talk like we used to. I pulled into our driveway at 1:45, noting Victoria's car in its usual spot. The house looked peaceful in afternoon sunlight. Freshly painted shutters, rose bushes she'd planted last spring finally blooming. Home. I unlocked the front door quietly, not wanting to startle her. The house felt still, that particular quality of midday silence when everything inside is suspended in calm. That's when I heard her voice. It was drifting down from the second floor, from the direction of what we called the office, the smallest bedroom Victoria had converted into her personal space. She'd claimed she used it for online art courses and yoga videos. Her voice had a tone I recognized, intimate, conspiratorial, excited. The way she used to sound when she'd call me with gossip or when she'd plan surprise weekend trips. Except I was standing in our foyer, and she clearly wasn't talking to me. "Derek, I'm serious," she said into the phone. "He has no idea." I froze at the bottom of the stairs. My forensic training kicked in automatically. Don't react, don't move, observe and record everything. 20 years of listening to executives confess to embezzlement had taught me the value of staying invisible when people reveal secrets. "I've been moving small amounts for months now," Victoria continued. "By the time he notices anything, we'll be long gone." The words hit me like physical blows. Moving money, small amounts, long gone. "The accounts are structured perfectly," she went on. "Everything's in my name but tied to his assets. When the final transfer's complete, he'll be on the hook for all of it." I pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering. Accounts, assets, transfers. This wasn't an affair. This was something worse. "Yes, baby. I know it's risky, but I've been so careful," she continued, her voice turning softer. "The shell company, the credit cards, the offshore accounts, it's all documented as his business dealings." Shell company, credit cards, offshore accounts, 20 years of investigating financial fraud, and my wife was describing textbook identity theft and money laundering, using my name, my assets. "I love you too," she said tenderly. "Just 8 more weeks, then we disappear, and Daniel gets to explain everything to the IRS. She laughed. Actually laughed. "See you Thursday at the usual place," she concluded. I heard a kiss blown into the phone. I stood paralyzed for 30 seconds. My training screamed at me to keep listening, but my emotions were a hurricane of shock and rage. I backed out quietly, got in my car, and drove to a coffee shop 3 miles away. I ordered black coffee and sat down with my laptop. I didn't call a lawyer, didn't call a friend, didn't break down. Instead, I opened a new Excel file and titled it Investigation V. Mercer. I began listing everything I knew. Victoria had been moving money. Someone named Derek. Multiple accounts. A shell company. 8 weeks timeline. I saved the file, encrypted it, backed it up to 3 secure locations. Then I went home, kissed Victoria hello, and asked about her day. That was the last genuine conversation we ever had. Everything after was performance. Her playing the loving wife, me playing the fool, except I wasn't a fool anymore. I was a forensic accountant with a target. Over the next 14 days, I conducted the most important investigation of my career. I did it in fragments, an hour before Victoria woke up, lunch breaks at work, late nights claiming I was on complex cases. I accessed every financial account we shared, pulling transaction histories going back 12 months. The picture that emerged was devastating and brilliant in its viciousness. First, the credit cards. 3 opened in my name over 6 months, using my SSN and forged signatures. I found the applications. Victoria had somehow obtained my signature specimens from old tax returns and traced them perfectly. Total charges, $87,000. Luxury handbags, jewelry, cash advances, all categorized as business expenses or charitable contributions in our household tracking app. Second, the shell company, Ashford Consulting LLC, registered in Delaware 8 months ago, listing me as principal and sole owner. Victoria had been funneling money from our joint Vanguard account, $3,000 to $5,000 every 2 weeks, always below the $10,000 reporting threshold. Over 8 months, $240,000. The company had no actual business, no revenue, nothing. Just a vehicle for moving money. Third, the home equity line of credit. Opened 8 months ago, supposedly for home renovations we'd discussed. Victoria had set up automatic transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Another $150,000 moved in carefully structured amounts. Fourth, the tax fraud. Amended returns filed electronically claiming business losses for Ashford Consulting, reducing our tax burden by $35,000. But the IRS would eventually audit, and I, as the listed owner, would face penalties, interest, and potential criminal charges. I sat in my home office at 2 a.m., staring at the complete picture. Total theft, nearly $500,000. Total debt she'd saddled me with, $87,000. Potential legal exposure, criminal fraud charges that could end my career and put me in prison. I researched Derek Miller, found 3 aliases, fraud investigations in Nevada, Arizona, and Florida. Each time, Derek had convinced wealthy women to invest in opportunities that vanished. He'd never been prosecuted, always settled civilly and moved on. He's a professional con artist who spotted Victoria at a charity gala 8 months ago and saw the perfect mark. A bored housewife married to a man with substantial assets and high-profile career. But Victoria wasn't just a victim seduced by a con man. The scheme was too sophisticated, too deliberate. She'd studied my work, learned how to create the kind of financial trail that would implicate me. She'd planned to destroy me, professionally, financially, criminally. I realized the timeline. Victoria planned to complete final transfers and disappear with Derek just before credit card bills came due, before the IRS audit triggered, before I realized entire accounts had been drained. I would wake up one morning to find my wife gone, my money gone, and federal investigators at my door. The shaking started in my hands and spread through my whole body. Not fear, rage, pure, cold rage. My wife, the woman I'd trusted, supported, loved, had tried to obliterate me. She'd weaponized my own identity against me. But she'd made one catastrophic error. She'd tried to con a forensic accountant, a man who'd built his entire career on following money trails and documenting fraud. I created a master file, 127 pages of bank statements, wire transfers, forged documents, screenshots, IP logs, email evidence, everything time-stamped, cross-referenced, annotated. It's the most comprehensive fraud case file I'd ever assembled, and now I needed to decide how to use it. I could call the FBI immediately, have Victoria arrested, and let the legal system handle everything. Clean, professional, by the book. Or I could be more strategic. Victoria thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She thought she was the hunter and I was the prey. She thought she'd outmaneuvered the man who'd spent 20 years catching people exactly like her. She was wrong on every count. I had all the evidence I needed to send Victoria to prison, but evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed her to know, really know, that I'd beaten her at her own game. I needed her to see it coming just before it was too late to stop. And for that, I needed Derek Miller to betray her first. Poetic, right? The con artist's girlfriend, destroyed by her own con artist boyfriend's testimony. The plan crystallized in my mind as I watched dawn break through the office window. In 3 hours, Victoria would wake up, make coffee, and ask about my day with that same loving smile she'd been using while planning my destruction. I was going to let her keep believing she was winning, right up until the moment I destroyed her completely. Victoria had taught me that some people see kindness as weakness, trust as opportunity, and love as leverage. I was about to teach her that consequences are inevitable. The ledger was about to balance. I moved like a chess grandmaster playing against someone who didn't even know the game had started. My first call was to Margaret Scott, my attorney. We'd worked together for 6 years. She'd handled legal aspects of several major fraud cases. I sent her the entire case file with a simple message: emergency, review immediately, we'll call in 1 hour. Margaret called back in 40 minutes. "Jesus Christ, Daniel, this is airtight," she said immediately. "Wire fraud, identity theft, tax fraud, conspiracy. Victoria's looking at 10 to 15 years minimum if convicted." "I know," I replied. "I need divorce papers prepared immediately, and I need asset protection strategies." "Already working on it," she assured me. "Grounds of fraud and financial infidelity. I can have preliminary papers ready by tomorrow afternoon. How much money are we talking about in vulnerable accounts?" "About $320,000 in accounts she can access," I answered. "The rest is in retirement funds or business accounts she doesn't know about." "We'll get an emergency court order to freeze the joint accounts," she said. "Once she's arrested, everything becomes evidence anyway." Next, Agent Sarah Green at FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Sarah and I had collaborated on 4 major cases over 3 years. She knew my work, trusted my analysis, understood exactly how thorough my investigations were. "Daniel? What's wrong?" "You sound like hell," she said when she answered. "I need to report multiple federal crimes, Sarah," I explained. "I'm sending you a case file right now." "Who's the target?" she asked. "My wife." Silence. Then, "Send me everything. I'll review it immediately." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "Daniel, I've been doing this for 12 years, she said. "This is the most comprehensive financial fraud case file I've ever seen. How long did this take you?" 2 weeks, I answered. 2 weeks? She responded incredulously. "Most cases this complex take our team 6 months to develop. Your wife picked the wrong husband to steal from." "Can you move on it?" I asked. "We can move immediately," she confirmed. "Federal warrants, asset seizure, the full package. When do you want us to execute?" 1 week, I replied. "I need time to protect myself legally and set up additional security measures." "What kind of additional security measures?" she inquired. "I'm going to flip Derek Miller first," I explained. "Daniel," she started. "Sarah, trust me," I interrupted. "Derek's the weak link. If I can get him to cooperate before Victoria even knows she's caught, the case becomes unbeatable." My boldest move, I contacted Derek directly. Using a burner phone purchased with cash, I called Derek's number from Victoria's phone records. When he answered, I disguised my voice slightly, deeper, more casual. "Derek Miller?" I said. "Yeah, who is this?" he responded suspiciously. "Someone who knows what you and Victoria are planning," I replied. "I don't know what you're talking about," he protested. "Ashford Consulting LLC, Cayman Islands accounts, $475,000 in stolen funds, the amended tax returns. Should I continue?" I listed methodically. Derek's breathing changed immediately. "Who the f*** is this?" he demanded. "Meet me tomorrow. 3 p.m. Riverside Park, East Bench near the fountain. Come alone," I instructed. I hung up before he could refuse. The next afternoon, I sat on that bench wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Derek arrived at 3:05, nervous energy radiating as he looked around the park. I removed my sunglasses when he was 10 feet away. "Derek Miller, meet Daniel Mercer, Victoria's husband," I announced. Derek went white, took a step backward, clearly considering running. I stopped him with 8 words. "FBI agents are watching us right now. Don't run." It was a bluff, but Derek had no way of knowing that. I handed him a manila folder containing copies of every piece of evidence. "I've already turned this over to the FBI," I explained calmly. "Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit financial crimes. You're looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison." Derek opened the folder with shaking hands, flipping through page after page of documented evidence. Bank statements, wire transfers, forged documents, photos of him with Victoria. "This is impossible. How did you—" he stammered. "I'm a forensic accountant, Derek," I interrupted. "Catching financial criminals is what I do for a living. You tried to frame me for crimes I investigate professionally." "What do you want?" he asked desperately. "I want Victoria to pay for what she's done," I stated. "You're going to help me make that happen." "Why would I do that?" he challenged. "Because if you cooperate with the FBI, tell them everything about how Victoria orchestrated this scheme, testify against her in court, the prosecution might go easy on you," I explained. "Maybe 5 to 7 years instead of 15. Derek looked up. "And if I don't?" he asked. "Then I'll make sure you get the maximum sentence," I replied coldly. "I'll testify personally about your history of financial fraud, about how you manipulated my wife, about how you tried to destroy an innocent man's life. Federal prosecutors love me, Derek. My testimony will bury you." Derek stared at me for a long moment, calculating, weighing options, realizing he had no good choices left. "She's the one who planned all this, you know," he said finally. "The offshore accounts, the shell company, the fake tax returns. That was all Victoria." "I know," I replied. "That's why she's going to get the longer sentence." "Okay, I'll cooperate," he agreed. I stood and walked away, leaving Derek sitting on that bench, finally understanding that his life as he knew it was over. 1 week later, everything came together like a symphony of justice. I left work early Tuesday and parked across from our house. At 4:15 p.m., 2 FBI vehicles pulled up. 6 agents got out, moving with calm efficiency. They knocked. Victoria answered, smiling, probably expecting a delivery. "Victoria Mercer?" the lead agent asked. "Yes," she replied cheerfully. "FBI, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes," he announced. The smile vanished. "What? No, there's some mistake," she protested. That's when she saw me. Standing across the street, leaning against my car, arms crossed, watching. "Daniel, help me, please!" she screamed. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as they loaded her into the vehicle and drove away. The trial was swift. Derek testified completely. My documentation was flawless. Victoria was convicted on all counts. Sentencing, 12 years federal prison. Victoria's sentencing hearing lasted 40 minutes. The judge called her actions calculated, cruel, and predatory. I sat in the gallery and watched her cry. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Just nothing. She'd tried to destroy me. I'd simply documented the truth. That's not revenge. That's consequences. 6 months after Victoria's sentencing, I narrate my new life from my downtown condo. I sold the colonial house within 3 weeks of the divorce finalizing. Couldn't stand being in those rooms where Victoria had smiled at me while planning my destruction. I bought a modern downtown condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and clean lines. No memories. Fresh start. My career is stronger than ever. Word spread quietly in professional circles about what happened. Not the details, but the broad strokes. Daniel's wife tried to frame him for fraud, and he outmaneuvered her so completely that she's serving 12 years. Clients started calling it the Mercer defense, the idea that you don't just protect yourself from fraud, you document so thoroughly that the perpetrator hangs themselves. My consulting fees increased by 40%. I still work 60-hour weeks, but now come home to silence instead of lies. I've started dating casually, nothing serious. I'm not ready to trust someone with my life again. Maybe I never will be. I'm okay with that. Victoria is in FCI Danbury, a federal prison in Connecticut. Derek is in Fort Dix in New Jersey. He got his 7-year deal for cooperation. They'll never see each other again. Sarah Green occasionally sends me updates, though I never ask for them. Victoria's letters continue arriving, now at my attorney's office. I've never read one. Margaret scans them, finds nothing legally relevant, and files them away. Apparently, Victoria's mother visited her once, then never returned. Her father refuses all contact. She has no one. People ask if I feel guilty. Colleagues, my attorney, even my mother. Don't you feel bad? She's your wife. 12 years is a long time, they say. My answer is always the same. She tried to destroy my life, frame me for crimes, steal everything I built. She made calculated choices every day for 8 months. The only thing I did was document the truth and protect myself. Some people call it revenge. I call it consequences, the natural result of Victoria's actions. She committed fraud. She's in prison for fraud. Simple arithmetic. Lessons learned. Trust, but verify. Love doesn't mean blind faith. The person sleeping next to you can be your greatest enemy. Protect your identity, monitor your accounts, never assume you're too smart to be conned. And most importantly, if someone betrays you, protect yourself first. Be strategic. Be thorough. Make sure they can't hurt anyone else. I end my narration sitting in my condo, looking out at city lights. I'm 41 years old, divorced, and at peace. I don't think about Victoria. Don't wonder how she's doing. Don't consider forgiveness. She made her choices. Now she's living with them. I pour myself a glass of bourbon, something I've started doing on Friday nights, and think about the forensic accountant's creed I learned 20 years ago. Numbers don't lie. People do. Your job is to follow the numbers until the truth becomes undeniable. I followed the numbers. The truth became undeniable. Victoria went to prison. The ledger balanced. If you're reading this and someone has betrayed you, remember, justice isn't always swift, but when it's thorough, it's permanent. Document everything. Protect yourself first. And never let guilt keep you from holding someone accountable for trying to destroy you. Victoria taught me that some people see kindness as weakness, trust as opportunity, and love as leverage. I taught her that consequences are inevitable. I sleep soundly every night. I hope she doesn't. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.